Morning, everybody. A little tired today, but I thought I would do another Seattle music scene little mini episode. And then tomorrow, I think I'm going to be doing a walkthrough of that Nightmare Toys here near Huntsville and take a look at all the horror related stuff they have because I love horror stuff. Anyway, we are going to be looking at a couple things here that have to do with the Guerrilla Gardens, which was a mid-'80s venue in Seattle, Washington. I'll give you a couple memories. I'm sure it'll come up again and other memories will come through around the Guerrilla Gardens as well. We mostly played there, I think only played there as the band The Grind. When I was in The Grind, our lead singer was Kurt Flansburgh, who at the time was dating Tracy Miranda, who eventually went on to famously date Kurt Cobain. And we played quite a few venues as The Grind. We were a five-piece at that point. Anyway, let me show you a few things that have to do with that. First of all, I think this is what it looks like now. The location was 410 Fifth Avenue in Seattle. It's near the International District, or in the International District, actually. If I remember at the time, the main manager or whatever promoter was Tony Chu. He was pretty notorious. If you were even anything but a headlining band, you pretty much didn't get any money. And he'd give you out handbills, and you had to pass out the handbills to get people to show up. And I forget, it was some weird thing like however many handbills got turned in by whatever band you got paid. But usually, I mean, as a band at that time, you get paid, maybe 15 or 20 bucks as a band if you were lucky, even if it was a pretty big show. So here's a couple flyers from that era. This is one we played. It was The Grind with Aces and Eights and other guests. I don't remember who the other guests were. That was August 8th, Thursday. It was $3. So we usually, a lot of times we get Thursday shows. That was like the up and coming or the smaller band shows. And this is not original flyer. I think I only have copies that we made. I think George Reaver maybe has some of the original copies. Anyway, one thing that was interesting about this is it does show the address, if you didn't know. So, and that is my handwriting. So I'm pretty sure that we kind of just cobbled this one together. And then this is another one. I don't think we made this flyer. And I think this might have been a Friday show because Descendents were the headliners. So that was pretty cool. I was pretty excited about that. So 7-Inch Snake presents Milo's Summer. I can't even quite make it out. So anyway, there's Descendents and Sedition were there. Get her. Pat Riot. And The Grind from Tacoma. Tuesday, September 3rd. Tuesday, it was a Tuesday show, probably just because that's when Descendants were coming through town. But I remember it being a pretty good show. It was $4 for that show. So anyway, I don't have too many more flyers from that era, but I will tell you a couple little stories about that venue. So a couple things I remember about the Guerrilla Gardens, and I'm sure John can accentuate this a little bit more too, or bring up some more information. I'm sure there's some people out there who also went there. I mean, it was a really well-traveled place, kind of right in between the metropolis and some of the later venues that started popping up in the late 80s, early 90s, when they had a big explosion. But at the time, there weren't a lot of places. So Guerrilla Gardens was kind of the main venue in that year or two. A couple interesting things about it is it had two venues. So you would go in the front. It was an old theater, a two-screen theater. So basically what would happen is you'd go in, and there was to the right there was one theater, and to the left was another theater. If I remember correctly, if we knew it, to the left was often the punk rock shows, and to the right was usually more of heavy rock or metal shows. Not always, but I think in general that was kind of the rule of thumb. And I believe on Fridays and or Saturdays, often they would have both playing at the same time. So you might have a metal act there and a punk rock act there, or a whole show going on at the same time. So I always felt that this was super influential for kind of the what eventually had happened with the scene is that you kind of had this melding of two groups that wouldn't necessarily always go to the same shows. But you've got, metal guys and rock guys and punk rock guys all there at the same time. And the fact that that was happening kind of might have led to some of the later kind of, whatever you want to call it, Seattle sound or grunge sound, which was definitely kind of a hybrid. Even, bands like Alice in Chains, which are pretty straight ahead rock and roll, or even Soundgarden for that matter, pretty straight ahead rock and roll. But they had this kind of different edge to them than a lot of the other rock that was coming out at that time that was probably somewhat influenced by that melding of two cultures that weren't necessarily divided from each other. A couple other memories in that place. The left venue that was mostly the punk rock venue had some of the seats or some old airplane seats or something sitting on the ground you could sit on sometimes. And also that venue, you could get into the projection room. So that was another thing that I think was really influential is if you were going to the punk rock show, people would go up sometimes to the projection room and look down at the metal show that was happening. So you could kind of get two for the price of one that way. Anyway, saw a lot of good shows there. Sure, we'll talk about more in the future. That is also, I think, where I met Slim. And I would often see Slim there and hang out and talk with him as well. That was Slim Moon if you looked at earlier tape. Anyway, hope that gives you a little information about the Guerrilla Gardens, and probably have much more to come, and I'm sure John can bring you some information as well. Talk to you later. Bye.